Antony Armstrong Jones, the husband of Princess Margaret, repeatedly cheated on her. But the most shocking moment was the result of a DNA test conducted in 2004 year. This test showed that a woman named Polly Hickson was his daughter. Moreover, Polly was born during Antony and Margaret's honeymoon. However, this was not the most startling discovery. The personality of Paul's mother turned out to be a real sensation. Stay tuned to discover who this woman was and learn about the dramatic moments in the life of Antony Armstrong Jones. A story of complete triumphs and heartbreaking tragedies. Undoubtedly, Antony has lived an amazing life, full of success, fame, and connection with the royal family. But his fate was full of scandals and broken hearts. Antony Armstrong Jones was not born an aristocrat, but came from high society. His father was a baron, and his mother was a socialite. However, his happy childhood ended when his parents divorced, barely 5 years old. Together with his older sister, he moved in with his mother, who soon married Lawrence Parsons, the 6th Earl of Ross, which significantly increased their social status. This new title made Antony part of a noble family, an important event for England in the 1930s. But despite this, he was not perceived as an equal among the new relatives. His mother gave birth to 2 more children with Parsons, and Antony always felt in the background, because he did not have noble blood. His childhood, already gloomy, became even worse when he was faced with a serious illness, polio. On holiday in Wales, he fell ill and spent 6 agonizing months in Liverpool Royal Infirmary. The only person who visited him during this time was his sister. Neither mother nor father appeared. After recovering, Antony's parents never got close to him, on the contrary. They sent him to a number of prestigious schools, such as Eton. There he became interested in photography, boxing and rowing, despite remaining limp after illness. Although he was never able to find a common language with his stepfather's family, his elite education took him to Cambridge. But even their fate was unfavorable. He started studying natural history, but 10 days later changed his specialization to architecture. However, he soon failed the exams, which changed his career. Despite the support from other family members, his parents were disappointed with his decision to take up photography. This further increased the gap in their relationship. Feeling unnecessary, Antony experienced the first great love shock when the lady, Barbara Nord, chose another man. It was a blow for him, especially since 3 months later he had to photograph her wedding. Antony decided not to miss the opportunity, and took advantage of his connections in aristocratic circles and among the elite, building a career as a photographer in the 1950s. He became known for his fashionable photo shoots and portraits of theater stars, while leading a very wild lifestyle. His studio on Pimlico Road was the venue for noisy parties, at which he hosted models, creating scandalous rumors around. There were stories about his relationships with both women and men. Despite this, he focused on his career. After his success in fashion and theater photography, Antony turned his attention to royal portraits. Queen Elizabeth II commissioned him to create pictures of his family, appreciating his unconventional approach. At first, he seemed like a charming addition to the royal circle, but this rapprochement soon turned against him. With the growth of his fame and connection with the royal family, Antony became more secretive in his personal life, especially in matters of his love affairs. The only exception was his controversial and widely discussed fascination with the showgirl Jackie Chan. Antony Armstrong Jones, hiding behind the appearance of a secular photographer, had a much more scandalous affair. By the end of 1950s, he had already become a well-known figure in Britain. But the mystery developed a relationship with Princess Margaret herself, the Queen's sister. Their friendship gradually developed into something more, which complicated the situation, especially against the background of Margaret's recent painful break with Captain Peter Townsend, which caused a wide public outcry. The princess's life was the exact opposite of Antony's. She was under constant pressure from the press, which caused the collapse of her previous novel. While Antony was struggling for recognition in his family and career, the princess was trying to cope with life in the public spotlight. The meetings of Margaret and Antony, though rare, brought comfort to the princess. They enjoyed private moments discussing his work. However, they had few opportunities for private meetings, which created difficulties for their relationship. After a previous breakup, Margaret and her family decided they wouldn't let the press ruin her new romance with Armstrong Jones. However, as often happens, even the most carefully thought-out plans can fail. The royal family sought to act differently than in the past, but this required significant sacrifices on Antony's part. In order to marry Margaret, Armstrong Jones had to give up his successful career as a photographer. He made this decision and gradually began to move away from professional activity, long before rumors of their affair leaked to the press. Although London society knew him as a successful photographer, the rest of the world first heard about him when the engagement of Princess Margaret and Antony was unexpectedly announced in 1960. This came as a real shock to everyone, including the royal press, who did not expect such a turn. Most people admired the news, with the exception of Antony's father, who, with his usual coldness, expressed doubts that his son would cope with the new role. He compared Antony's stay at Buckingham Palace to life in the barracks, which turned out to be prophetic. Preparations for the wedding began immediately, but everything went smoothly. Antony chose his friend Jeremy Fry as his best man. However, Fry's background check revealed compromising details. He was caught harassing a man in a public toilet. The palace hastened to hush up the scandal and came up with an excuse for Fry's absence at the wedding. But this incident has left a shadow on the upcoming wedding. On the 6th of May, 1960, Antony Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret tied the knot at a solemn ceremony. This event went down in history as the first royal wedding broadcast on television. About 20 million viewers watched the ceremony, which was attended by 2,000 guests. Then the honeymoon followed. They went on a 6-week trip to the Caribou, hiding from the public attention. This journey, however, led to the omission of significant events, such as the birth of a child with his friend Jeremy Fry. Upon returning home, an unpleasant surprise awaited them. Certain circles of the British press were dissatisfied with the marriage of Princess Margaret with a commoner, as Antony was called. This discontent was not limited only to the media. Snobbery was manifested in other places, including among the servants, who treated him with contempt. One of the butlers created a lot of problems by spreading negative reviews in the press about the couple's life in the palace. Shortly after the wedding, Antony faced another difficulty: the dislike of Prince Philip, who did not hide his disapproval. The personalities of Armstrong Jones and Philip were sharply opposed. Antony was a sensitive artistic person, and Philip preferred an active male lifestyle. Under pressure from the press and family circumstances, Antony gradually began to experience stress, which soon affected his marriage. A few months after the wedding, Princess Margaret became pregnant with their first child. But the tension in the relationship has already begun to increase. Since the mid-1960s, their relationship has finally gone downhill. In 1964, Margaret gave birth to their second child, daughter Sarah. But it didn't save their marriage. Antony traveled more and more often, leaving Margaret in London. One of these trips was with Pamela Colin, the editor of the magazine, with whom Antony was rumored to have had an affair. Margaret, instead of suffering, responded in the same way. She had an affair with actor Peter Sellers, and then with Robin Douglas Home, the nephew of the former Prime Minister. When Antony found Margaret and Robin talking in their house, he was furious. Antony intercepted Robin's letter to Margaret and gave it to the Queen Mother, ensuring that Margaret ended her relationship with Robin. However, this situation has led to tragic consequences. Robin Douglas Home committed suicide 18 months after breaking up with Margaret, which caused her deep emotional trauma. But this incident did not become a point of reconciliation for the couple. After the incident with Robin Douglas Home, the relationship between Antony Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret continued to deteriorate. Despite the external facade of marriage, his personal life was full of conflicts. Armstrong Jones did not stop his novels, and Margaret was increasingly immersed in social life and abused alcohol. They parted ways. Antony focused on his career, and Margaret sought solace in the company of celebrities. Antony Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret were loaded during the years of infidelity, which led to a sharp deterioration in their relationship. Antony expressed his dissatisfaction in a childish way, leaving a list of his complaints in the book, including such rudeness as, "You look like a Jewish manicurist, and sometimes I hate you." He often interrupted her at parties, saying, "Shut up, let someone smart talk." These actions caused embarrassment to others, although Antony seemed to remain indifferent, while Margaret suffered. However, the suffering of the princess was not only because of her husband. Surprisingly, the royal family, including other members, were on Antony's side, finding him likable. They hoped that the couple would be able to lead separate lives to avoid the shame of divorce. However, this situation put pressure on Margaret, which led to an increase in her alcoholism and her antics in public, which caused criticism of anti-monarchists. Meanwhile, in the late 1960s, the constant infidelities of both spouses became routine, and, despite rare meetings, reconciliation seemed more and more distant. On their honeymoon, friends gave them a piece of land on the island of Mustic. And although Antony never returned there, Margaret used it as a refuge in difficult times, having struck up an affair with Rhodey Love, the son of a famous British equestrian athlete who was 18 years younger than her. Their relationship began as a friendship and lasted for 2 years. He was 25, she was 43. It seemed like just another novel in a long history of infidelity, but it became a catalyst for serious changes. Perhaps the Caribbean islands have become an unexpected arena for royal intrigues. Rupert Murdoch, a well-known newspaper owner, sent a journalist who, under the guise of a tourist, photographed Princess Margaret and Rhodey together. The publication of these pictures was the last straw in the marriage with Antony and undermined the reputation of the royal family. Realizing the need to recognize the problem, Antony decided to turn to lawyers, but the royal family postponed this decision. As a result, Antony announced the divorce without the knowledge of Margaret and the family, taking the situation into his own hands. After their official divorce, the tension between Antony and Princess Margaret gradually disappeared. Antony did not seek a complete divorce, believing that the palace is unlikely to ever give it. He was prepared to remain in a state of legal batteries for life. However, to everyone's surprise, the palace eventually agreed to a divorce, which was finalized in 1978. Antony didn't waste any time. His relationship with producer Lucy Lindsay Hawke had grown out of professional romantically long before these events. Margaret and his ex-wife were amazed when he announced his intention to marry Lucy just 5 months after the divorce. They got married in December of 1978, but their union was far from a fairy tale ending. So Antony's rapid transition from one drama to another began, which confirmed his penchant for relationships, sitting down, striving to be in another place. Although Antony got rid of the bitterness that he experienced during the last decade of his marriage with Margaret, he did not leave his former vices. In between the divorce and the breakup, he began an affair with a married journalist, Anne Hills. When she found out about his marriage to Lucy, she was shocked, but she was not going to part with Antony. This novel became a road to dark consequences, although he maintained his old habit of cheating, this time. Lucy showed patience that Margaret never had. With less media attention and no royal duties, Antony seemed content to be married to Lucy. They even had a baby. Nevertheless, he continued to hide his romance with Anne Hills, which lasted for 20 years. Anne had hoped for more from Antony, but as time went on, it became clear that her wishes would never be fulfilled. At the end of 1996 year, after being fired from The Guardian and another breakup with a guy, she fell into a deep depression and committed suicide, leaving a note with a declaration of love for Antony. The investigation found her diaries full of details about 2 decades of their relationship, and soon the contents became the subject of discussion in the press, exposing Antony's constant infidelities. Lucy found out about the sad truth, but Antony's reaction was indifferent. He didn't explain himself and let everything slide. 2 years later, after the revelation of the affair with Lucy, she learned that Antony had fathered a child. From fashion magazine editor Melanie Cable Alexander, who was almost 30 years younger than him, Lucy realized Antony's tendency to manipulate the truth to her advantage, which was the last straw for her. Antony was caught between Lucy and Melanie. He tried to save both of his relationships, but could not satisfy the desire of either of the women. The support of his ex-wife, mistress, and the growing number of children seriously hit his finances. To ease the financial burden, he unexpectedly offered Melanie to accept £250,000 from Chloe's magazine for a public appearance, which Lucy did not like. Antony eventually broke up with Melanie, and Lucy filed for divorce. His libido quickly led to many new novels, despite the health problems caused by polio. Antony died peacefully in the year 2017 at his home at the age of 86, and was buried in a family burial ground in Wales. He outlived his ex-wife Margaret by 15 years. His other ex-wife Lucy is alive and remained his girlfriend after the divorce, taking care of him in recent years. In the last years of Antony's life, some of his most scandalous secrets appeared. Outside of his love affairs, rumors about his orientation have arisen, including suggestions of bisexuality. Some male interior designers claimed that they had affairs with him, but these claims remained unconfirmed. When Antony and Princess Margaret were involved in rumors of infidelity, there was talk that Margaret had an affair with Mick Jagger, to which Antony allegedly responded by contacting his wife Bianca. However, the story of Antony's infidelity began long before that. In 2000, a DNA test confirmed that he had an illegitimate daughter, born just a few weeks before his wedding to Margaret, and her mother was Camilla Fry, the wife of Antony's best friend. These tumultuous relationships and shocking discoveries, and Antony Armstrong Jones paints a complex picture of infidelity and scandal, emphasizing his character and the confusion that underlay his relationship. It makes you wonder, how would Princess Margaret react? Find out the whole truth about his secrets. This is the end of our story about the scandalous life of Antony Armstrong Jones. If you liked our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you soon.